morning. Kind of sunny, freezing cold, but we're ready to get going. I have to say my grandson graduated last weekend. That's why I wasn't here. So he graduated. He had they do school so much different now, but he had a 4.37 grade point average. I mean, how do you get a 4.37 grade point average? No, it's not. It's not really extra credit. They give them extra credit for doing college classes. So if you get an A in a college class, you don't get a 4.0. You get like a 4.5 or something like that. And so anyway, he graduated with 4.7, and so that was kind of nice. And he got some scholarships, and he's headed to play lacrosse. Good reason to go to college, to play lacrosse. And Concordia University in Southern California somewhere, in the LA area, I think. So, yeah, fun. And they're supposed to be a Christian college, but a lot of Christian colleges that claim to be Christian colleges I have a little trouble with. Your sister did? Okay. Yeah. It's down by LA somewhere. I don't know. But I'm sure I'll find out, because I'll probably have to at some point go watch a lacrosse game down there, since how he's going to be playing that. But all right. You guys ready to get to the Bible? Yeah. We're talking about coming to maturity. Now, what does anyone remember? Why did God create what he created? What was the reason he created it? To worship him, for his pleasure, for his glory, right? So everything God created, God said, I created this for my glory. And what was the greatest thing that he created? What was his greatest creation? Mankind. Why do we say that mankind was his greatest creation? Made in his image. So we were made in God's image. So we were created, and everything was created to glorify him. So man was created to glorify God. And so he created Adam and Eve and mankind so that he would be glorified. But something happened. What happened? Sinned, right? We fell in, so we call it the fall. Mankind messed up. And because of that, our fellowship with God was broken. Because we were created to have fellowship with him. We were created in his image. He gave us a mind. You remember that? He gave us a mind so that we could know him. He gave us a heart so that we could love him, right? And he gave us a will so that we could choose him. So a mind to know him, a heart to love him, a will to choose him. But when the fall happened, those things got a little bit messed up, didn't they? Yeah, just a little bit. And so we talked about the mind, and we talked about the heart, and we talked about the will and what that meant. But today we're gonna delve into that quite a bit deeper, because we want to talk today about specifically just the mind. So what do you think? And specifically today we're going to talk about the old mind. Next time we'll talk about the new mind, but we want to talk about the old mind. What do you think? If I was to ask you, what happened to our intellect, our mind, our ability to think when the fall happened? What happened to it? It got messed up. Okay. Well, it did get messed up. Yeah, and so it made us think wrongly. Is that a word, wrongly? Incorrectly. It kind of messed up our ability to think Godward. And it corrupted it. Yeah, and we'll see that today, I think, in our lesson. But so today we want to talk about the old mind, and we're going to start with First Corinthians, if I can get it there. Let's try it again. This thing is really touchy. All right. 1 Corinthians 1:18 through 29. This is what it says. It says, "For the word of the cross is foolishness to those who are dying." That word dying means to perish. It's apolemi in the Greek, and it means that they're perishing. It means really to destroy fully, to completely destroy. So the word of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, are dying, okay? What is the word of the cross? Someone tell me, what is the word of the cross? What do we preach? What do we teach? The gospel. That Jesus came, he lived a sinless life, he went to the cross, he died for us, and he was resurrected again, right? He was buried and then resurrected again. That's the preaching of the cross. Well, the word of the cross, according to Paul, is foolishness to those who are perishing. But to us who are saved, it is the power of God. So we see it completely different because we're believers and we have a new mind, which we'll talk about next time. But for us, it's the power of God because he saved us from our sin, from eternal death. But those who are perishing, those unbelievers, it's like, you know what the word foolishness means in the Greek? You'll get it. I'll tell you what the word is. It's moria. Moria. What word do we get? Moron or moronic, right? So the word of the cross is moronic. Like, you guys are morons for believing in this, right? Yeah. You ever been called a moron? I have. But, yeah, and that's what they see it like, what? How does that work? This guy came, he lived a sinless life, he died on the cross, he was buried, he was resurrected, and that's how you're saved. That sounds pretty lame. Pretty easy, right? Really, there should be more to it than that, but there isn't. It's very simple. So anyway, so those are dying. It's kind of crazy. For it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise, and I will bring the discernment of the discerning to nothing. God wrote that. That's in the scripture, that he will destroy the wisdom of the wise, and will bring the discernment of the discerning. That word discernment means the intelligence. So you could say the intelligence of the intelligent to nothing. Has God kind of messed with our wisdom and our science? You could put wisdom and science a lot in the same boat, right? Our philosophy as well can fit into that worldly wisdom. Do you think God's messed with that at all? You know, being in the medical profession, I had a lot of science classes. So I got to learn a lot about science. And then I had a lot of psychology classes too, because I'm an occupational therapist and we deal with psychology. So I have a degree in psychology and I have a degree in occupational therapy. And so you have to take a lot of like physics and chemistry and, you know, and all that kind of stuff. And did you know that what they were teaching me isn't the same as what they teach today? In other words, we like to think as science as just it's a matter of fact, right? But we only have 3 laws, really. Those are constant. But and one thing that I found out in school is that all science is based on is theory. And what you guys know what a theory is? The theory is as mankind, this is our best guess as to what is going on. And so what happened is, so I went through school and I got through school and I'm treating my patients and I'm doing things and I think I'm helping them out and I'm doing right. And they do get better, but as one doctor told me, he said 98% of the people are going to get better no matter what you do to them. All right, that's what he told me. And that kind of ruined everything for me. He said, they're going to get better. We take the credit for it, but they're going to get better anyway. So I said, all right, well, we'll take the credit for it. But one thing that I found out, so I'm treating them like this because that's how they said that we should be treating people. And then a few years later, I go to a seminar, right? And they said, oh, no, you shouldn't be treating them like that. That's the wrong way to do it. You got to treat them like this because we found out that this and this and this is happening. We didn't know that before, but we know it now. And you'll find that in the world of nutrition, too, because I study nutrition a lot as well. And, right, eggs were bad. No, eggs are good. Nope, eggs are bad again. And then, no, eggs are good for you again. I mean, it just changes all the time. And so God, I think God laughs at us. I think he's up there saying, what is wrong with these guys? That what? Yeah, you know, all that kind of stuff. It's just crazy what we see out there. And so God says, I will bring the discernment of discerning the intelligence of the intelligent to nothing, which is pretty much what he's done. Look at the theory of evolution. You want to talk about something that's been destroyed, is that theory. I mean, it's been destroyed. It doesn't even make sense. Anyway, it's a lot of crazy. So he says, where is the wise? Where is the scribe? Where is the lawyer of this world? Hasn't God made foolish the wisdom of the world? Okay? Foreseeing that in the wisdom of God, the world through its wisdom didn't know God. Right? The wisdom of the world says there is no God. That's what they want you to believe. There is no God. And some might say, well, there's a higher power, right? You hear that sometimes, but that's still not knowing the one true God, right? It goes on to say that foreseeing that in the wisdom of God, the world through its wisdom didn't know God. It was God's good pleasure through the foolishness. That word foolishness is that same word, moronic preaching of the cross. Preaching to save those who believe. For the Jews asked for what? Show me a sign, show me a sign, show me a sign. How many signs do they get? Doesn't matter if they show you a sign. I mean, really, a lot of people today still ask for that. I got to see something, right? They see it and then they try to explain it away. Right? It's just crazy. But so for the Jews ask for signs, the Greeks seek after wisdom. It's all about science. If science says it, then it's right. If science doesn't say it, then it's not right. Okay? But we preach we preach Christ crucified, a stumbling block to the Jews. They trip over that. And foolishness to the Greeks. They think it's stupid. But to those who are called, that would be us, Christ is the power of God and the wisdom of God. See? Because the foolishness of God is wiser than men. Think about that. If God's, this can't really happen, but the dumbest God can get is still smarter than the smartest man can get. But God can't get dumb, all right? But I'm just saying that's kind of the point he's trying to make. But the foolishness of God is wiser than men, and the weakness of God is stronger than men. And there's no weakness in God, by the way. He's just trying to make a point here, right? For you see your calling, brothers, that not many are wise according to the flesh. How many geniuses do we have in here? I mean, sometimes intelligence can lead. Okay, Dennis says he is. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, nobody did say, yeah, that's you. Yeah. So, the super intelligent guys, I'm going to say like Hawkins, what's that guy's name? They tend to go, oh, there is no God. Right, and the scientists with all the wisdom that they have, they say, "Oh, there is no God." Yeah, they're wrong. So anyway, we don't see a lot of those according to the flesh. Not many mighty, not many noble, Noble means well off. If I'm well off, do I need God? That's a trick question. Yes. Do they think they need God? No. All right. Yeah. But God chose the moronic things of the world that he might put to shame those who are wise. God chose the weak things of the world that he might put to shame the things that are strong. And God chose the lowly things of the world and the things that are despised and the things that are not, that he might bring to nothing the things that are, and that no flesh should boast before God. So the purpose is that we, as human beings, we should have nothing to boast about before God. He's stronger than us. He's smarter than us. And what are we going to boast about? And think about, what do you have that God didn't provide for you, that God didn't give you? Why can you even boast about, oh, I have all this money, or oh, I'm so strong, or oh, you know, I'm this great athlete? Yeah. Where'd you get it? Yeah. And so, no flesh should boast. What's the number one thing God hates? Pride? Pride. A prideful man. That's it. Yeah, he says in the list of the 7 things he hates, number 1 is pride. Yeah, and when we fell, pride took center stage. And so we need to get back to that. And that's what the new mind does for us. But that, again, that's next time. Today we're talking about the old mind. So the effects of the fall on the old mind, and we just talked about it a little bit. They think things are what we believe are kind of moronic and stupid, and just what's the matter with these Christian people? They just don't get it, right? We're just dumb, and we just don't understand. Well, so some of the effects. Here we go. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and the unrighteousness of men who suppress the truth. So do we see any suppressing of the truth today in today's world? Boy, and about every part of it, right? Whatever part you want to talk about, whether it's politics or it's science or it's whatever, they suppress the truth. How hard is it to get the truth out? You're missing words. Yeah, it's kind of crazy, right? Right, and so the suppress the truth of in unrighteousness, because of that which is known of God is revealed in them, meaning in His creation, we're in His image. It's revealed in us that there is a God, right? For God revealed it to them. For the invisible things of Him, since the creation of the world, are clearly seen, being perceived through the things that are made, even His everlasting power and divinity, that they may be without excuse. Because knowing God, think about this, knowing God, mankind started out knowing God pretty close, didn't we? Adam and Eve, they knew Him pretty well, and probably they understood even their children and all that kind of stuff, right? But knowing God, they didn't glorify Him as God, neither give thanks, but they became vain in their reasoning. So what do you think, what does it mean to become vain in your reasoning? That word for reasoning is dialogos in the Greek, and it means in your debating, in your discussion, in your, just in your thoughts that are in your brain. They became vain in their reasoning. Yeah. That word vain kind of means empty, worthless, profitless, maybe is a good word for it. Their reason is profitless. And their senseless heart was darkened. Professing themselves to be wise, they became what? Guess what that word is? Same one we've been using. It's the same Greek word. Professing to be wise, they became morons. Isn't that nice that God and our old mind is kind of moronic? And traded the glory of the incorruptible God for the likeness of an image of corruptible man and of birds and of four-footed animals and creeping things, we got so stupid that we started worshiping idols, things that we make, right? As Isaiah said, they'd go out and they would cut down a tree and they would take half of it and they would use it in the fire. They'd take the other half and they would carve it and make an idol out of it and bow down to a chunk of wood. Now, you want to think moronic. I'd say that's pretty. Or the blacksmith puts in some metal and comes out with, a statue of something, and they bow down to it. Yeah, and so that's what happened to our mind, is that it got messed up, just messed up. And we're going to look at the characteristics of the natural mind. So we're going to go through those today, if we can get through them all. Hopefully we can, because there's a lot of characteristics. The number one is darkness. Did you know that the old mind is a mind that's of darkness? Well, what does that mean? What do you think that means? A mind of darkness. Anyone? What's that? Yeah, a mind of sin, yeah, of darkness. And so let's take a few verses that talk about this. Romans 1:21 says, because knowing God, they didn't glorify him as God, neither gave thanks, but became vain in their reasoning. We talked about that. And their senseless heart was darkened. Okay, and now the word darkened in the Greek there, it's skatizo. Skatizo, I think is how you say it. And it means that it didn't really get completely dark. Like, it'd be like pretty dark, but you can still see a little bit. Have you ever heard the word obscure? So, and that's what this Greek word really means. It kind of obscured their knowledge. So, I always say this about being in the dark. We have I don't like saying this, but we put a night light up for me. Yeah, that's hard for me to take, right? So my lovely wife has put a nice little, I don't know, one of those fake candles in the bathroom, because there's snakes. And I can't see it in the dark because my vision's obscured, right? That's kind of the point I want to make. But I would, sometimes I'd be going to the bathroom and bang, I'd hit my shoulder on the door jamb, right? And because I couldn't see it. Or I'd stub my toe or whatever. I think mainly she put it there because I missed the toilet. And that would, yeah, it happens. But, and so my vision's obscured is the point, right? And I can't see properly. I can't see clearly. And that's what this is talking about when it talks about that our old minds are in darkness. Our old minds are partially obscured. They don't see it correctly. They don't see it clearly like they should. Ephesians 4:17 and 18 says, this I say therefore and testify in the Lord that you no longer walk as other Gentiles walk in the vanity of their what? And the vanity is the profitlessness of their mind, having their understanding darkened. That word understanding is a little different than just mind. But it means, I mean, it's part of the mind, but it means that their deep thought, what they really think about, has become obscured, being alienated from the life of God through the what? Ignorance. Why would God say that about us? The ignorance that is in them because of the blindness of their heart. That word for ignorance, it really means silliness. Our word for it would be stupid. By the stupidity that is in them. And so that's kind of one of the characteristics of the old mind is darkness. It's obscured. It can't see clearly. Another one, the effects of the fall, is that the mind became evil. What's it mean to be evil, do you think? What's that like? What's being evil? Sinful, not caring about anybody else. Those are all evil things, aren't they? Yeah. Evil in the Hebrew that we're going to see here, where it says their heart was only evil, is the word ra, R-A, ra, and it just means anything that's just bad, right? Whenever you do anything that's bad, it covers the whole gamut of badness. That's what evil is. Evil is just badness, okay? And so what happened to the mind, and God saw the wickedness of man in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. Think about that state. No wonder the flood came, huh? Every imagination, that word imagination in the Hebrew, it means every conception, everything that they thought about, of the thoughts. And the word thoughts, I didn't want to try to say that word, so I put it up there for you. So, makasha'aba. And that's with the pronunciation, I probably got it wrong. And it means it's an intention. It's like making up their plans. This is what we want to do. Those kind of thoughts. And every imagination, everything they could come up with was bad. They couldn't come up with good. And it was continually, it said, right? It said, the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. That word continue, I looked it up in the Hebrew, it's yameh. We get day, it means every day. Every day, their thoughts were only evil. Every day. What a state that is to be in, huh? Every day, my thoughts are going to just be evil. Yeah. Thank God for the flood. A lot of people don't thank God for those kind of catastrophes, but I think he did it for us. So we have darkness, evil. The next characteristic is distorted worship. Okay, and we saw that a little bit. We'll look at it again. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools, and they changed the glory of the incorruptible God into an image made like corruptible man, and to birds, and to 4-foot beasts, and to creeping things. So one of the things the fall did to our mind is it distorted our worship. So now we worship everything, don't we? I mean, if you look around at humankind, how many gods are there? Endless amount. You can just go to the Hindu religion, right? Just the Hindu religion itself, and you'll find hundreds and hundreds of gods. But there are different gods all over. Even within Christianity, there are different gods. Sad, right? There's different Jesuses. What's the right one? Right? Everyone has. Some people think that Jesus is the brother of Lucifer. Right? Some people think that Jesus isn't God. He's one step down. That are under the guise of Christianity. And you can go on and on and on. Some people say that Jesus just came as a spirit. He never really was physically here. There's all kinds of thoughts just in the guise of Christianity. And so they profess themselves to be wise, but they change the glory. That's what the mind did. The mind tries to think too much, but the mind is messed up. The old mind. Thank God he gave us a new mind, which is important. So, this is one of the things that are minded to distort worship. It says, and the whole earth was of one language and one speech, and it came to pass. Well, talk to me a bit. Well, I will stop there for a second. I get on a lot of sidelights in case you didn't notice. What's the world like today? Can we all communicate with each other today? We have the technology to, and pretty much we do, right? One of the things I noticed, so we went to Israel, we went to Jordan on a trip. They all spoke English. We could communicate with them. They had signs in their language, but they also had signs in our language, English, right? So and then I said, okay, well, I went to Scotland. Same thing. I went to the Netherlands. Same thing. They all speak English. We can all communicate together. It doesn't matter where you go, unless you're going to, some tribe in Papua New Guinea somewhere, right? But for the most part, the whole world speaks the same language. And today it's computer language, right? And so we have that. We all have that ability to get ideas from each other and thoughts from each other and all that kind of stuff. I can go on the internet and I can find answers or thoughts anyway to everything. Anything I want to ask, anything I want, I can go and someone will give me an answer. They might not be from this country, they might be from another country. But we'll have their opinion anyway, right? Yeah, and so it's kind of crazy. So the whole earth was of one language and one speech, and it came to pass that they journeyed from the east, and they found a plain in the land of Shinar. That's in what we'd call Iraq today, right, in Babylon. And they dwelt there, and they said one to another, come, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone and bitumen that's what we'd call like tar, right? And mortar, and they said, come, let us build a city and a tower whose top may reach to heaven, and let us make who a name? Let us make us a name. We're God. See, this is mankind saying, we're going to replace God, we're going to have a tower that goes to heaven, and we're going to make us God. Us a name. Lest we be scattered abroad on the face of the whole earth. And the Lord came down to see the city and tower which the children of men built. And the Lord said, behold, the people, now listen to what he says, the people are one. Are we trying to make a one world today? Yeah. The people are one, and they all have the same language, and this is what they begin to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them. That's the scary part. And that's the part that I think we're in today in this world, that there's nothing that we can't do. Nothing will be restrained. Nothing will be held back from them which they have imagined to do. And what's the matter with our imagination today? It's wicked. It's fallen. Okay? We have a fallen imagination. Okay, so he said, come, let us go down. Who's he talking to, by the way? Have you ever wondered that? Come, let us go down there and confuse their language. Yeah, so probably the Trinity. Yeah. Let's go down there and confuse their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad over the face, there up on the face of all the earth, and they left off building the city. Therefore, the name of it is called Babel, because the Lord did there confuse the language of all the earth, and from there the Lord did scatter them abroad on the face of all the earth. And so the worship of mankind was distorted from the fall. The mind it's just messed up. And so we start to make gods out of whatever we want. Or we start to say there is no God. Those are all effects of the fall of mankind. So we have darkness, evil. These are the characteristics of the old mind. Darkness, evil, distorted worship, at war with God. Did you know that your old mind is at war with God? Yeah. It is at war with God. Romans 8, 6, and 7. To be carnally minded is what? Death. But to be spiritually minded is what? Life and peace, right? Because the carnal mind, what's carnal mean? Sinful, fleshly, yeah. Yeah. Our old nature, yeah. All those work as what it means. We'll see the Greek word here in a little bit, but it all fits into that. And it says, because the carnal mind is what? Enmity against God. What's enmity? What is it? At war? Yeah. In strife with. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, for it is not subject to the law of God. The old mind is not subject to the law of God, neither indeed, it can't even be. That's interesting. Well, that's the word right there for enmity. It's hostile. Opposite, opposing God. That's the word. And so we have this mind that is at war with God. It's opposing it. This old mind. And so it's no wonder we see the world fight against God, right? Why the world wants to see his people destroyed. Why we affect them so much, that they hate us so much. Yeah, because the old mind's at enmity with God. And Jesus told us that, by the way, anyway, right? He said that they're going to hate you in this world. That's if you follow me. So Ephesians 4:17, along the same line, Paul said, "This I say therefore and testify in the Lord, that you no longer walk as the other Gentiles." In other words, you don't walk according to the world, right? Walk as other Gentiles walk in the vanity of their mind. Okay, the vanity of their mind. The word vanity is right there. And it means just what it says. It's worthless. Inutility. It means it's worthless. It's profitless. It doesn't do anything. That's what the old mind does. So you, as a believer, you're no longer to walk in the vanity of that, and of that old mind, having their understanding, we saw this, darkened, being alienated from the life of God because of the stupidity that is in them because of the blindness of their hearts. So our minds just are at war with God. They're just at war. Another characteristic is that the old mind is unable to receive God's truth. What do you think of that? The old mind is unable to receive God's truth. We'll go to 1 Corinthians for that. It says, "But the natural man cannot understand the things of the Spirit of God, for they are" what? Foolishness. That's that same word we've been looking at all day. That means it's moria, and means moronic. They are moronic to him. Neither, and this is the thing, neither is he able to understand them. He cannot understand. He's not even able to understand them, the natural man, because they are spiritually discerned. Have you ever talked with unbelievers about God? I know Dennis does a lot on his web or on his blog or whatever. Boy, they can be hard to deal with, right? I remember one time when we were at a youth group function, and it was nighttime, and Dennis and I took off, there was a camper next to us, and we wanted to go talk to him, and he was from, what country was he from? Germany. And how long were we there talking with him? Maybe an hour or two. And this guy just couldn't get the whole idea of the gospel. He literally could not get it. And anyway, we tried. But who knows if we planted a seed or whatnot. We always want to think that we did, right? Planted a seed. But I had, another one. I had a patient when I first started doing therapy, and he'd come in, and he liked to talk about that kind of stuff. But he just said, "You Christians are crazy. You guys are nuts. How do you believe that?" And he says, "I know." And he even quoted this verse. He said, "You're gonna quote this verse about me." And I said, "You're right." And it's right. And you proved my point. But anyway, it's just crazy. They can't receive the truth and they're unable to. My dad used to read the Bible before he became a Christian. He said the Bible made no sense to him. No sense at all. He said, in fact, he said it was pretty stupid. Pretty crazy. Didn't make any sense. Well, he finally accepted Jesus Christ. He said he picked up the Bible and started reading it again. And he said it made perfect sense to him. Figure how that works. Right? And so I think about this verse because of all the experiences I've had, and this verse is right. It's correct. That's the way it happens. They just don't get it. They can't. Okay? And so we shouldn't get all upset about that either, right? They just can't get it unless what happens? The Holy Spirit, right? Then they can understand. All right, so we have darkness, evil, distorted worship, at war with God. Nice mind, isn't it? Unable to receive God's truth. How about reprobate? God called it a reprobate mind. Yeah, just kind of crazy. Romans 1:28 says, and even though they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a reprobate mind. Well, that's a word that we don't hear very often, do we? What's it mean to have a reprobate mind? And it says it makes them do things that aren't proper. There's the word. Unapproved, rejected mind. Implication, a worthless mind. Yeah, nice. I just love my old mind. It just has so many good characteristics there. Yeah, it's not good. So a reprobate mind, gave him up to a reprobate mind, unimproved or rejected, a morally impure mind, right? And then we have carnal, and we talked a little bit about this one. We'll do it again, but it says, because the carnal mind is enmity against God and is not subject to the law of God, neither act, so they that are in the flesh cannot please God. You guys understand that if your mind is living in the flesh, if your mind is living for the flesh, you cannot please God. You guys understand that? You cannot please God in the flesh. There's no fleshly thing that you can do that's going to please God. All right? They that are in the flesh, they that are walking according to the flesh, cannot please God. The word carnal is sarx in the Greek. And it literally means your flesh. It means your body, your physical body, as opposed to the spirit or the soul. And we already talked about what it meant to be enmity with that. But the carnal mind, the fleshly mind, the mind that wants to do what it wants to do, that's the mind, by the way, that advertising that the world puts out to you, the propaganda that they put out to you, they want to satisfy your flesh, right? So all the advertising, have you ever my wife gets a little upset with me sometimes because I get mad at commercials. Because I say, are these real? They think we're this stupid, right? And so let's take a drug commercial. Have you ever noticed on a drug commercial that everybody that's taking that drug is happy? And not only that, but everybody that's in the commercial is smiling. Is that normal that we see that all the time? And that they're always doing something that's like a family project, or they're playing a game, or they're doing something. And without that drug, so it puts in your mind that without that drug, you can't be happy like this. You can't play this game like this, which is all lies, but we see it and we say, oh, yeah, and so they appeal. And the car commercials, the same thing, right? They're all happy and they're all smiling and they all appeal to the flesh. Yeah. It's not, yeah, it's not quite like they show in the commercials, is it? That's exactly right. Then that's a good word for it too. Um, yeah, and so, but the commercials, they appeal to your flesh. Yeah, and the flesh cannot please God, but boy, it is sure out there. The whole world is about, especially in the world of advertising, right, is about appealing to your flesh. But if you're walking in the flesh, if you're living your life according to your flesh, you cannot please God. Cannot happen. Will not happen. It just doesn't. Let no man deceive you of your reward in voluntary humility and the worshiping the angels, intruding into those things which he has not seen, vainly puffed up by his fleshly mind. So we're still talking about the fleshly mind. It is vainly puffed up. Is kind of a interesting word. It means that without any reason. That's what it means. Without any reason, he builds it up. The word puffed up is to inflate. So he inflates what God's word are what he saw. So I noticed fishermen do this, right? I caught a fish that was this big. Well, in my mind, it was that big. I shot an elk that was huge. You should have seen the elk that I saw. It was a 12-point on each side. You know? It was probably a 4-point, but I got excited, and my mind just puffs it up, right? And so that's kind of the whole idea here, that our minds, our fleshly minds, blow things up out of proportion. Exaggeration, yeah. And one of the things I've noticed is in my life is that the longer something's happened, the more I add things to it. I do, and I tell myself, Kyle, that isn't really exactly how it happened, but it sounds better. So, yeah, it's kind of crazy. But so we have these minds that they inflate, and especially here we're talking about worshiping angels, and and that kind of stuff. You can get into some really good stuff. One thing mankind has is an imagination, right? Sadly, it's a fallen imagination for the most part. And so we can make up all kinds of stories. That's another thing my wife gets mad at me about, is when they're making stories on the TV, and I said, well, it's supposed to be true, right? And I said, I would write that different than that. If I'm going to have a story that I'm going to fill in the parts, I'm going to make it what I want it to be, how I thought it went. You know, otherwise it's just conjecture, and it's just crazy. Anyway, so we have another one there. Defiled. The mind, the old mind. Another characteristic is defiled, right? To the pure all things are pure, but to those who are defiled and unbelieving nothing is pure. But even their mind and conscience are defiled. Their conscience is like their co-perception. That's their moral compass, so to speak. So the mind and the moral compass are defiled. What's it mean to be defiled? Damaged, corrupt, dirty. Oops, I think I got the word there. And it means to be tainted, solely contaminated. All right, so it's defiled, it's contaminated. The mind and the conscience, the moral right is contaminated. Are we surprised by what we see out in the world? We shouldn't be. I mean, even today, I'm surprised that our minds can run to that much evil. How much evil is out there now since we became one world, so to speak? More and more, right? It's just crazy. But in Timothy it says, perverse wranglings of men of corrupt minds, destitute of truth, supposing that gain is godliness, from which such withdraw yourself. Talking about people in the church. This is wranglings of men, corrupt minds, destitute of the truth in the church. Supposing that gain is godliness, from such withdraw yourselves. Right? And does gain always mean godliness? No, I don't think so. What about if I have a church and man, we just have thousands coming now? Look at that gain we had. But I'm preaching crud from the pulpit. Does that ever happen? Yeah. Yes, it does. Gain isn't godliness. Oh, but look at all that we can do. Look at all the money we have coming into this church. Gain isn't godliness. Okay? And so you have these men of corrupt minds and that's the old mind. And what's it say that a Christian's supposed to do with those people? Withdraw. Yeah, get away. Yeah, and I'd say get as far away as you can. Okay, so these are all the characteristics of the corrupt mind. We got more. Earthly, which is real similar to the fleshly one, right? For many walk, of whom I've told you often. And again, he's talking about the church, and now tell you, weeping, that they are enemies of the cross of Christ. Are there enemies of the cross of Christ in the church? Are there false teachers in the church? Are there people in the church leading people astray? Absolutely, yeah. And Paul, he's crying about it. I tell you now, even weeping, that they are enemies of the cross of Christ, whose end is destruction, whose God is their belly. In other words, they want to make money so they can eat, right? And whose glory is in their shame, who mind what? Earthly things. They're all about teaching earthly things and not spiritual things. And that's part of the old mind. Okay, and another characteristic of the old mind is it's blinded. And again, this is real similar to what we already talked about, right? In whom the God of this age is blinded. That word blind, well, I'll show you. It's that word right there, tuphaloo, and it means to make blind, to obscure. So the old mind is obscured, and we kind of talked about that, in whom the God of this age, the important part here is who's doing the blinding? Who's the God of this age? Satan. You notice that's a small g on that? Yeah, that's because it's not a true God. It's someone who thinks he's God. The God of this age has blinded the mind of those who don't believe. Yeah. Lest the light of the glorious gospel of Christ, who is the image of God, should shine on them. He doesn't want anyone to believe in Jesus Christ. Satan doesn't want anyone to believe in Jesus Christ. And so he blinds their minds. He obscures their thoughts. He brings stuff into the church that leads them away from the truth. Yeah, and so that's scary. That's not what we want, right? And so Satan is always, his favorite place to be is church. He loves being in church. He wants to see how many of us he can blind, how many of us he can obscure to the truth. Yeah, and it's scary. All right, we're almost done. I can tell you guys are getting your eyes. I can see them. Right? It's the same way my wife's eyes look that way when she's getting a migraine headache. So I can see that. So the old mind leads to death. All right? For to be carnally minded is death. But to be spiritually minded, that's what we should be, is life and peace. Death there is Thantos. Life is Zoe. They're opposite. And anytime you see Zoe life, it's talking about spiritual life. Okay? If you see bio life, it's talking about physical life. But this be spiritually minded is life and peace. And that's how we should be. All right. Last thing. Every man is tempted, this is our mind. Every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust. Whose fault is it? Ours, right? We're drawn away by our own lust and enticed. Okay? Then when lust has conceived, it brings forth sin. And sin, when it is finished, brings forth death. To be carnally minded, be fleshly minded, is death. To be fleshly minded is sin. It's your own desires that entice us. I mean, Satan's there doing his thing too. That entice us. So it's us. We have the responsibility, don't we? The responsibility's on us. And when lust has conceived, when those desires, you finally give in to them. That's what it means to conceive. It brings forth sin. And sin, when it is finished, brings forth death. These are the characteristics of the old mind. Thanks be to God that if you have trusted in Him, if you put your trust and your faith in Jesus Christ and what He's done, He has given you a new mind. And next time, we're going to see what that new mind looks like. I bet it doesn't look anything like this one. What do you think? It's going to look a whole lot different. Okay? This is the old mind. Hopefully we don't have that anymore. Well, he's still there, right? It doesn't go away. But it can be beaten. It can be overpowered by the new mind, which we'll talk about next time. Okay, let's pray. Father, we just thank you for your word today and just praise you for who you are and what you've done. Help us to follow you with our minds, with our hearts, with our soul, with all the strength that we have, that you might be glorified in the things that we say and in the things that we do. Just pray now for Craig as he brings your message this morning, that you would speak through him to us. We would hear and be obedient to your truth. In Jesus' name,